talk a little bit more about what I've mentioned in previous videos around invoking light, and a video I made about a year ago kind of explaining, at least at my current level of understanding, the three higher bodies, because we think we just have a physical body, right? But we actually have a mental, emotional, and identity body. And so we've been taught, because this is a materialistic world and in a lot of ways kind of like ass backwards, inside out, we've been taught to think that you change things by force and through physical means. And in a lot of ways, given that we live on this dense planet, given the fact that there is this kind of reverse flow of energy for a lot of people, that is often the case. You exercise, you do some breathing exercises, you do whatever, yoga, whatever, and you can change your energy. You can feel better. You can regulate your nervous system in a lot of ways. And the Ascended Master teachings and what I've been utilizing, these tools, which are invocations and decrees, they are doing things from the top down. So you're invoking light from the ascended realm to transform those three higher bodies, because that, when you can penetrate the three higher bodies and change things from there, it is more likely that physical conditions will change around you. And it can start with some really rudimentary examples. Like, I can have this belief, this identity, that I am a human being and there's nothing more. I've heard of God. I heard that that's a thing. I heard that he's real. I heard that I should believe in Jesus. And if I don't, I'm going to hell. And then, not to mention, this is a very broad topic. This is a really expansive topic, but let's just, again, rudimentary, simplify it down. And then, what are the kind of thoughts that a person like that would have? Well, there's a myriad of thoughts that they could probably have. But they could be looking at themselves as a sinner, as, they're being programmed from Christianity to accept the doctrine that they are born in sin. They will never be like Jesus. He was the exemption. And don't listen to anything that he said about in the Bible, because you need to listen to your pastor tell you who you are and the person that you are. And so you start to internalize these beliefs about yourself, thinking in certain ways that confirm that identity. But more than that, because we're not even talking about past lives here, we're trying to stay as narrow as possible. Think about all the mechanisms and belief structures that you would have to take on in order to continue to affirm that identity, right? And the emotions that are tied up in that. You can start to kind of create your own fictitious example with the picture I'm painting, right? And so say this person goes on and they have a near-death experience. They get in a car accident. They're flung out of the windshield and are dead for 14 minutes. And in that process, they have a spiritual experience. And they come in contact with something that challenges their internalized belief of who they thought that they were. And what this place is, what Earth is. And they come back, fast forward in time, they heal, they recover, but they are forever changed, because you can't unsee and unexperience what you've experienced. Doctors can write it off as some hallucination of the brain, but it's a felt sense experience that can't be explained unless of course, do even just a little bit of research and see that there's so many people that have these experiences, these near-death experiences, and it challenges who they think that they are and what they are a part of and where they come from and how peaceful it is. And so that changes you. That was a physical experience that forced you out to be changed. Now, do you have to have physical, forceful experiences in order for you to change who you are? Not necessarily, but we do live in Earth, and there is this thing that we live in called the School of Hard Knocks for a lot of people who are in the duality consciousness. And so when you're in the School of Hard Knocks and in duality and immersed in it, you believe that the outside affects who you are, and your emotions are a byproduct of something outside of yourself that you don't have control over. And as you become more consciously aware, you start to see, and you climb higher and higher on the spiritual ladder, you start to see and experience, not just conceptually understand, you experience reality for what it is, and that is not the cause of who you are. But that's what the world wants us to think, that the boogeyman out there is why we are, if they would just disappear, if they were just imprisoned, if these people would just vanish off the face of the earth, we would then be safe and okay. The boogeyman theory, right? And so, for a lot of us, we go through the School of Hard Knocks, and the knocks become harder and harder and harder until it's like this final jolting experience that can manifest a situation like that, for example, or past life karma just kind of catches up to someone and they're forced into a hard, rude awakening, but it doesn't have to be that way. I'll leave that up to you to decide based off of your own life experience. Because at the end of the day, I'm not here to tell you how to feel or think or to even believe anything that I'm telling you. It's just another way to look at things, another way to experience and to feel into it for yourself, what feels real and what triggers come whenever I share this information. And so, because it's not just information, it's like this energy, this expression. And so, going back to why we invoke light and the three higher bodies, the mental, the emotional, the identity realm. It's not only our three higher bodies, but collectively we have these three higher bodies. You have the physical realm, the mental realm, the identity and emotional realm. And so when we invoke light, we're invoking healing in those areas. And so it gives people the opportunity to make higher and higher choices. So whenever I talk about invoking light into certain conditions that I feel really, resonant with or passionate about, it's not like I'm waving a magic wand. I'm making this invocation and check, I did my community service for today and all this stuff is going to be fixed by tomorrow. I mean, it's just not like that. It's not this mechanical, magic wand process. It's you're clearing space in ways, because you can't affect people's free will. People have the free will to choose their life. We live on planet Earth and free will reigns supreme. But you're giving people, you're sending energy out into the collective consciousness by way of the ascended realm. You're giving the masters, the ascended masters, authority to bring the light, anchor the light into the planet, onto the planet, and so that people have access to make higher and higher decisions if they so choose. But when there is no light, just like with the sun, when the sun is gone and there's darkness, you can't see anything, but you know shit's there, and you know, like you can see the trees. But it's not until the light in the sun rises, appears, where you can actually see what was once in the darkness. And so when we invoke light, we're evoking the ability to see, the ability to look at something a different way, look to feel and to attune to something, to a higher way to look at something, the ability to see things in a way that you couldn't see it before. Because how can you see something if you were never able to see before? Does that make sense? Like, how could I have made a different choice about my life if I didn't know that there was any other choice? If I didn't, you know what I mean? Like, if I didn't do the work, like, I could have just ended up like the rest of my family in this lifetime, right? Taking the same life path as they did, but I chose differently because I experimented with my life and knew that there was something more. And so when you know that there's something more and you're given the opportunity that there's something more, you can make better, higher, more aligned choices. And even when you make a poor choice or a choice that you don't prefer because you just made a choice which is neutral, you made a choice, it's the outcome you don't like. It's the consequence that you don't like. So, make a different choice. I kept being have used this example a lot, but I kept participating in an abusive relationship where there was a lot of chaos. Let's just say that, because it's like, that's really the neutrality of it, is like there was a lot of affirming chaotic energy. There was a relationship that affirmed more chaos, that affirmed me not trusting my own intuition and going against my higher mind. And so I got sick of doing that enough. School of Hard Knocks, right? I got sick of banging my head against the wall and decided to do something different, and that meant choosing a higher choice. And oftentimes, especially if you're engaging in compulsive behavior, you have to teach yourself to do less when you were doing way more than you needed to, because you were overcompensating, because you were acting out through these separate selves that I've used before, these mechanisms, these compulsive mechanisms. You were feeding that energy, that light that you get from your higher power, your source, the ascended realm. You were feeding that energy into those conditions, into those trauma patterns, into those loops, into those cycles, into those separate selves, and continuing the dysfunction, continuing the thing that you actually didn't want, but you were compulsively engaged in because it was an addiction, Whether it's thinking about certain things, it's like anything that you do repetitively is not natural, and it's not a shame thing, but anything you do that's repetitive in that way there's some misqualified energy and a separate self involved. And there's some stagnation there. And that's why we're always a work in progress, because, for a lot of us, we have that to some degree, whether it's a small degree or a large degree, So we invoke light to resolve the conditions, not as a magic button, not as a magic wand. We invoke the light to give space to be able to see things from a higher perspective, from a higher vantage point, because you're directly calling and affirming and anchoring the master's presence to help you in these situations, in these conditions. Everything that I've ever asked help with, anything I've ever asked or need help with to see, because I'm not asking them to fix me and to do it for me. I'm asking them to help me see so that I can make a better choice, right? Anything that I've ever asked for, they have helped me see, and they have helped me overcome. Period. Like, I live in a completely different reality now than I did a year ago, than I did 2 years ago, since I came into these teachings. It is like night and day, 180 degrees. And I didn't do it because I'm like indoctrinated to some cult-like teaching. I did this whole, the Ascended Master teachings are a system of resolving psychology. And I, up until this point, up until finding the teachings a couple of years ago, I had tried everything that the psychology could offer me. And I'm not dismissing any of these tools. I just needed something more. And I needed to do things in addition to and supplement to. So where psychology failed me, or rather where I couldn't grasp or get what psychology could give me, the Ascended Master teachings have been like, oh my God, like phenomenal for that. So that's just me sharing how this has impacted me. I'm not saying that, again, you have to do any of these things or what, but I'm saying that it has been tremendous for me because of what I have overcome, like super compulsive, addictive behaviors, addictive thinking, compulsive thinking, just really high-strung, a lot of anger and upsetness, and all of that is just, we're talking about just in a far better place, that I can actually say I feel peace and it not be a lie. And I know I'm not totally resolved. I know I still struggle with, feelings of frustration and impatience or judgment, but it's like a fraction of what it used to be. And like, I was extremely like out of balance after doing so much work on myself, as a spiritual person. I've overcome so much. And so I'm just saying that, I feel like, if this is something that resonates with you, maybe not the teachings themselves, but if you resonate with me, I'd be happy to work with you, because I'm at that place now where I can work with people. I can help you, see things from a different perspective than you had before. And I'm not, a licensed counselor yet. I'm not, this isn't to replace your own therapy. This isn't medical advice, but I am happy to open myself up with my squeaky car to the ability to work with you if you feel like that is something that you are open for. And if that is the case, I have a link below that you can click that can take you to my scheduler, and there will be some questions for you to answer, and we can get you scheduled. And in the meantime, I hope this was interesting or helpful to you in any way. And I very much I just really enjoy expressing myself and processing this stuff on this platform. It's a joy to be able to express myself and to, be able to articulate what I know and have experienced in my heart and have been transformed by, and to be able to share that with other people, not as some like evangelist or like shouting from the rooftops that you should do this and you should be in these teachings and all these things. I'm just trying to do what I've always done, which is explain and digest and articulate my experience of reality and what I know it to be, I don't believe anything that I've told you. This is stuff that I just know for myself. And that's that. And so I'm going to leave you be to bypass my squeaky car. I need some WD-40. Holla at your girl if you have any. Just kidding. I'm going to go to the store and get some. And I will talk to you in my next video.